The Los Angeles night buzzed with anticipation outside the glossy studio of Jimmy Kimmel Live. A line of spectators stretched around the corner, each person clutching their ticket like it was a golden pass to a heavyweight championship. Inside, the stage lights glowed ominously. Camera crews adjusted their positions. Producers whispered final instructions. But the atmosphere was charged for a different reason tonight. This wasn't going to be just another celebrity chit-chat. Tonight's guest, Elon Musk. The same Elon Musk who had been dominating headlines for weeks. Tesla stock volatility, boycott hashtags trending, his unapologetic tweets, and of course, his public endorsement of Donald Trump's economic policies. The country was split, again, and tonight Jimmy Kimmel was ready to exploit that divide for primetime fireworks. Jimmy strolled onto the stage with his signature grin, hands clasped. The crowd erupted into applause. He gave a few quick monologue jokes, warming up the audience. Then, without missing a beat, he shifted his tone. Our guest tonight, well, let's just say he either wants to save humanity or tweet us into extinction, Jimmy quipped. He's the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, and more Twitter drama than the Kardashians. Elon Musk. The crowd roared again, though it wasn't unanimous. There were cheers, scattered boos, a few standing ovations. Musk walked in with measured steps, wearing a crisp dark suit with no tie, a slight grin playing on his lips. He waved casually, nodded to the audience, and took a seat across from Kimmel, legs crossed, posture relaxed. Jimmy wasted no time. So Elon, Jimmy started, his tone laced with mischief. When you're not firing off cryptic tweets at 2 a.m. or endorsing political chaos, what do you do to relax? Elon smiled thinly. I launch rockets into space and make self-driving cars. Hobbies. The audience laughed, but Jimmy leaned forward. Let's talk about the boycott, he said sharply. There are entire campaigns telling people to dump Tesla. Some of your critics say you've aligned yourself with political, let's say, radioactive figures. Is being a disruptor worth losing half your customers? Elon's expression didn't flinch. It's funny, the people who scream diversity of thought the loudest tend to panic the most when they hear something they disagree with. Jimmy raised an eyebrow. That sounded almost Trumpian. The mention of the former president stirred the crowd again. Some booed, some chuckled. Elon turned slightly toward the audience and shrugged. If Trump says 2 + 2 = 4, I'm not going to claim it's 5 just to spite him. Kimmel smirked, but there was a flicker of tension now. But don't you think there's a responsibility when you're this visible? You've got millions following your every word, your every meme, Elon. Supporting Trump, especially now, sends a loud message. Musk's reply was calm but icy. The louder message is that I'm not afraid of mobs, online or otherwise. My responsibility is to truth and innovation, not to the fragile egos of cable pundits. There was a murmur in the crowd. Jimmy wasn't used to being checked. He adjusted in his seat, his grin now thinner. All right then, let's get specific. You called the media corrupt clickbait factories. That include me too? Elon paused. Well, Jimmy, I don't know. Do you clickbait people? The audience laughed, bawing a bit too loud. Jimmy chuckled, trying to brush it off, but Elon didn't blink. The balance of the room was shifting. Kimmel tried to regain momentum. Let's go back to the boycott. You've said before that you think it's coordinated. Are you suggesting there's a conspiracy against you? Musk leaned in slightly. Coordinated? No. Predictable? Yes. When you speak truth to power, whether it's about government inefficiency, corporate hypocrisy, or media fear-mongering. The pushback isn't a conspiracy. It's a reflex. Sounds like something you and Trump might toast over whiskey, Jimmy said dryly. Musk smiled wider this time. Only if it's aged in Silicon Valley and brewed with free speech. The audience erupted again, mixed claps and laughter. The tension had become electric. The usual rhythm of Jimmy's show was faltering because Musk wasn't playing defense. He was playing chess, and he was several moves ahead. Kimmel looked into the camera, his smile now visibly strained. Stay tuned, we're just getting started. After the break, more on AI, politics, and whether Elon thinks Twitter is saving the world or just destroying everyone's sanity. The lights dimmed. Musk sat back in his chair, relaxed, as if he were in complete control of the room. The stage lights snapped back on as the break ended. Jimmy Kimmel smiled at the camera, but there was something different in his demeanor now. A slight shift in the shoulders, a flicker of uncertainty in the eyes. Elon Musk had not only survived the first round of questions, but had turned the narrative in his favor. The audience could feel it. They weren't just watching an interview anymore. They were witnessing a standoff. "We're back with Elon Musk," Jimmy announced, forcing his voice to match the energy he'd lost. "The man who wants to take us to Mars, turn cars into robots, and apparently bring Twitter back to the Wild West." Elon smiled politely. "It's actually X now, Jimmy. Stay updated." A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Jimmy nodded mockingly. "Right, X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, where the blue check marks mean less than a Costco receipt now. Still more valuable than some late-night monologues," Elon replied smoothly. Jimmy chuckled, but it landed with a wince. He leaned forward again, this time abandoning the charm entirely. "Let's talk about your alignment with Donald Trump." The studio hushed. Even the camera operators froze slightly. "You've praised his policies. You've defended him on your platform. And just last week, you were seen at Mar-a-Lago. Are you officially Team MAGA now, or just flirting with the chaos for fun?" Musk didn't flinch. He clasped his hands together, his voice calm. "I support policies that work, regardless of the messenger. I support energy independence, deregulation for innovation, and freedom of speech. If that makes me MAGA, then maybe the Overton window has moved further than we thought." Jimmy smirked. "That's a very rehearsed answer." "That's a very rehearsed accusation," Elon shot back. The tension spiked. "But come on," Jimmy continued. "You don't see any danger in normalizing a man who tried to overturn an election? Who's been indicted multiple times?" Musk raised an eyebrow. "You mean the same system that couldn't find WMDs, told us masks didn't work, then did, then didn't again, and now wants to teach kids there are infinite genders, but still wants us to trust every single indictment a gospel?" A few gasps echoed in the crowd. A small cluster in the back even applauded. Jimmy blinked, momentarily stunned. "So now you're questioning law enforcement, science, and education in one breath?" Elon tilted his head. "I'm questioning groupthink, which has infected all three." Jimmy cleared his throat. "You realize you sound like a conspiracy theorist, right?" "No, I sound like a person who doesn't get his worldview from TikTok infographics," Elon replied coolly. The crowd stirred again. This time, more applause. Jimmy tried to regroup. "Let's move to AI. You've called it the biggest threat to humanity, yet you're building it anyway. Isn't that like warning about nuclear bombs while selling uranium door to door?" Elon leaned back amused. "I'm warning about AI because most of the people building it don't understand it. I do. That's the difference. It's like fire. You can cook with it or burn your house down. The key is who's holding the torch. And you think you should be holding it? Would you prefer the guy whose entire knowledge of tech ends at TikTok dances?" The audience laughed again. Osama, louder this time. Jimmy's attempts to land punches were missing their mark, while Elon's counterpunches hit with deadly precision. "Okay, philosopher king," Jimmy muttered, half laughing. "Let me ask you this. What do you say to the Americans who feel betrayed? The ones who bought into Tesla thinking it was green, progressive, forward-thinking, only to watch you become the poster boy for conservative memes and Twitter wars?" Musk's smile faded slightly, just enough to make the room pause. "I say this, if your loyalty to progress depends on everyone thinking exactly the same, you're not progressive, you're just tribal. Tesla isn't left or right, it's forward. But if truth scares you, maybe you weren't that forward-thinking to begin with." Dead silence, then spontaneous applause. Jimmy took a breath. He wasn't losing control. He'd already lost it. And now he was scrambling to regain footing. "You do realize you've alienated a huge chunk of Hollywood, right?" Elon nodded. "Hollywood alienates itself every time it preaches from a mansion about equity. I'll survive." Jimmy forced a grin. And what about your advertisers? A lot of them pulled out of X. You accuse them of blackmail. Because that's what it was, Elon said plainly. Pulling ads over political pressure isn't capitalism. It's coercion. Jimmy scoffed. So you're saying you're the victim now? Elon looked him straight in the eye. No, I'm saying I'm the one who doesn't play victim and still wins. The line hit like a thunderclap. The crowd erupted again. Even those who came to boo were now leaning forward, captivated. We'll be right back, Jimmy said, almost robotically. The camera panned out, the music played, but the energy in the room had shifted for good. During the break, Elon remained seated, unshaken. The producers gathered around Jimmy, whispering nervously. He nodded, but it was clear. The evening wasn't going as planned. Musk checked his watch, sipped his water, and smiled. The final segment began with an awkward silence. The familiar, upbeat theme of Jimmy Kimmel Live played as the camera zoomed back in on the stage. But something had changed. The crowd, once buzzing with anticipation, now hummed with cautious tension. Elon Musk sat calmly in his chair, legs crossed, his posture regal. Jimmy, on the other hand, adjusted his cuffs, glanced sideways toward the producers, and gave a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. All right, Jimmy said, clearing his throat. We're back with Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, X, and apparently the Resistance. The audience chuckled nervously. Elon smiled. I think that title still belongs to whoever writes your punchlines. Another ripple of laughter, this time sharper. Jimmy inhaled, forcing composure. Let's finish strong, Elon. I want to talk about you, the person, not the tweets, not the headlines, just you. How does it feel knowing you've become polarizing? Elon paused. He looked around the room. The lights, the cameras, the crowd, the tension in Jimmy's shoulders. It means I'm telling the truth, he said simply. Jimmy blinked. That's a bit self-congratulatory, isn't it? No more than what happens when late-night hosts pose as moral authorities in makeup, Elon replied. Another sting. The crowd stirred. Elon wasn't just defending, he was deconstructing the entire premise of the show, brick by brick. Okay, Jimmy said, trying again. Let's talk about the boycott. You're losing advertisers. You're bleeding political capital. You've openly told sponsors, and, I quote, to go fuck themselves. That's not exactly negotiation. Elon's eyes lit with clarity. That wasn't negotiation. That was freedom. Freedom? Jimmy repeated, incredulous. Yes, Elon said, leaning forward. I built platforms where free speech actually means something, not filtered through a brand-safe committee. And when advertisers try to control speech, they're not customers. They're gatekeepers. Jimmy nodded, his tone growing more sarcastic. But it's still business. You're running billion-dollar companies. If everyone pulls out, what then? You just go down with the ship and call it bravery? Musk didn't miss a beat. I don't build ships to sink. I build them to go where no one else dares. If that makes me a pirate in the eyes of the corporate class, so be it. The crowd, this time even the hesitant pockets, applauded. Jimmy narrowed his eyes. And Trump? You never really answered. Why back a man who's tearing the country apart? You think he's the solution? Elon exhaled slowly. I think people are tired of plastic politicians reading from focus group scripts. I think people want someone who says what they mean, however messy. I don't worship Trump, but I respect disruption when it forces a broken system to confront itself. So you're just rooting for chaos? No, I'm rooting for reality, even when it's inconvenient for your audience. There it was, silence again. Not empty silence, but charged. Do you miss being liked? Jimmy asked, more earnestly now. Elon smiled faintly. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to build the future. Jimmy leaned back, silent for once. For the first time all night, he looked not like a clever host orchestrating a takedown, but like a man facing someone who didn't play by his rules. All right, he said, raising his hand in faux surrender. I give you this. You're honest, unfiltered, and maybe a little unhinged. Unhinged is what people call visionaries before the stock goes up, Elon replied. Laughter again. now unfiltered. Jimmy offered a handshake. Elon took it. The audience applauded, now louder, more sincere. It wasn't just a celebrity leaving the stage. It was a victor exiting the arena.